What's up, Staunch Gang? So I recently saw one of the worst sequels of all time, and I just had to share it with you guys. Anybody else out there seen Half Baked 2? Totally High? Now I don't know if it's just comparing it to the original, or if this movie's just bad, or not as good as it could have been. It's a hard movie to judge because I could just be real and just say it's a piece of shit, but I don't know. I guess I try to find the best out of these things, and there was a few times during the movie I kind of laughed out loud. And overall, these movies always hold my interest because of the what the fuck factor. But let's get to it. Let's talk a little bit about Half Baked 2. Half Baked 2 tells the tale of Thurgood Jenkins' son. Now, you may know Thurgood. That's Dave Chappelle's character from the original. Well, him and Mary Jane wound up having a kid. Turns out Mary Jane left Thurgood because he's a piece of shit. He started smoking again, and that's all he would ever want to do, apparently. So she moved her kids away from everything, and his son is kind of like a nerd, until he finds the cool kid smoking a joint in the bathroom. So it's a weird kind of thing. Like, there's things like that throughout the whole movie where they kind of do like these little callbacks to the original film, but not really, and the ones they do just don't really drive it home. I don't know, we'll talk about that a bit later. But basically the kids, they're like obsessed with this strand of weed after a while called Biblica, which is supposed to be like the best weed in the world or whatever. I don't know. I think they should have maybe gone with another name, right? Like, I don't know, Mr. Nice Guy or something or whatever, I don't know. But eventually they're hanging out and they smoke this weed, and they're all like totally high. There's four of these guys, and one of them pulls out a joint called the Holy Trinity, which is apparently this legendary joint. It's like three joints rolled together, and only the chosen one is supposed to smoke it. And that's when we learn that apparently Thurgood Jenkins has been ranting about this for years, and now they find out it's true. So what happens? The leader of the gang at this point takes a puff of it, and he dies. So in the original film, they try to get their friend out of jail. In this one, they're trying to get their friend buried back home where he wants to be, because his dying words were saying where he was from, which was like Passaic or something like that. A lot to take in here with this movie, and we'll see that happen a lot. We'll see a lot of like really, really dark humor here that just isn't really laughable. It's more like, what is happening? Why do they think this is going to be funny?
That's a lot stronger than the we used to smoke in 1998.
So Thurgood Jenkins' son, who's named JR, by the way, is living with his online influencer friend. Her name is Corey. She has like a weird line of sex toys or something. It's another joke that doesn't really go anywhere. And then they have their potential comedian friend named Miles. I guess he's supposed to fit in the Jim Brewer role, sort of. And I'm glad they didn't try mimicking that whole Jim Brewer thing, because that would have just been weird. So JR, he has a job at the post office, and then he winds up finding some bricks of weed of the Biblica, and because basically the place gets trashed and like boxes get knocked around, and he sees it because one of them is opened, and that all happens because one of his coworkers gets fired, and he does the whole fuck you, you're cool, fuck you, I'm out, and he like wrecks the storeroom or whatever. So there's like, it keeps popping up. They keep reminding you, hey, this is a half-baked sequel. So they find the Biblica and they start selling weed, this time in order to send their friend across the country, their dead friend. And that's when we meet our first villain, basically, David Koechner, who basically is just seriously, he's sleepwalking through this fucking role. And he has a weird haircut. Like, I know the dude's bald or whatever, but his hair looks like shit. And so the kids are selling weed, and they got this dude after him, and they get kicked out of their place, and they have to go move in with their mom, Mary Jane, and then Mary Jane's back in the picture. So all three of them are living there and selling weed, where they're not even supposed to be smoking weed or anything. So she's still a stickler. She's against weed, but she's like a lovable character. It's nice to see Rachel True in something again. I'll say that much. And overall, it's just fun to see her on screen and her reprising this role. But there is like a weird romance with the funeral home girl, and there's like always a gross joke involved with her. Like, they talk about like long pig and stuff like that, which is, it hints at cannibalism. There's a bunch of weird stuff, There's even a scene there with a dead guy, and she tricks JR into fondling this dead guy, and it's supposed to be funny, but it just kind of puts a gross taste in your mouth. It's something to behold. Let me tell you. The David Koechner character, he's like kind of like the Samson of the movie. He's like forcing the guys to pay him instead because they took his business, they took his shit or whatever. And now that David Koechner is kind of like extorting them, they have to sell even more, and it gets out of hand. But they find a big customer, and that's when we start getting our cameos. Like we have Jeff Ross shows up, and he kind of has like a cool little scene, recurring scene with the character of the guy trying to be a comedian. Their friend, what was his name again? Miles. So that he's trying, he wants to be a comedian, and Jeff Ross is kind of talking him through it every time he buys weed. So that was a cool little addition there. I didn't see coming. But the biggest cameo, as far as the film is concerned, is Frankie Muniz. He buys a bunch of weed and he pulls the guys out of their hole, so that they're able to pay what they need to because of Frankie Muniz. And about halfway through the movie, it's a second random bad guy is introduced. It's very weird. And the only good thing about this guy, the second villain, is he's actually has like a character to him, and he has like really bad breath. So every time he's talking to someone, they're just like, "Oh goddamn, get away from me!" I'll do whatever you want. Just close your mouth, stuff like that. So that's one of the funniest parts in the movie. But then nothing really comes of all that. There's like a weird little, like kind of like climax, if you will. The movie seems like it's going to be over. The bad guys get handled, and it seems like it's going nowhere. And just at the third hour, whenever the main villains are handled, that's when Frankie Muniz comes back. It turns out he's the real bad guy. He's the one in charge of everything. Everyone else are like puppets or some shit. And turns out he is a psycho killer who does art with his victims' bodily fluids. You see what I mean? The movie just keeps getting really, really dark, and it really did sneak up on me, I'll tell you that much. But it's cool to see Frankie Muniz in a role like this, because what the hell, I thought it was just another stupid cameo, but nah. And he has like a bunch of Biblica seeds, I still keep thinking, like, why are they going with Biblica? Why didn't they reference, the weed before from the first movie? And I don't know, as far as cameos go, like, we do get another character from the first one in Harlan Williams. And he shows up in the very beginning when they're smoking weed for the first time in the bathroom. And he's dressed like a coach, right? And he comes out and he takes a hit of their joint. And Harlan Williams is like, "Oh, man, this is much stronger than the stuff we used to smoke in 1998. And then he even calls them buttercups. But then he's credited in the movie as like, I don't know, guy in bathroom or some shit like that. So he's not even referenced as his name. I don't see why why they would do that. And as far as gags from the original references, I really feel there should have been more. Like my favorite gags from the original, they don't really pop up here. Like whenever Dave Chappelle would see like a bunch of weed and he like kind of nuts himself, he's like, I love that shit. There's no rapper character, there's no point of view like dog flashback story, which would have been awesome with just a different animal. I really feel like some smaller scale kind of reference, joke throwbacks, whatever. I feel like they really would have helped here with this movie because it would have gave it a more silly feel. That's the thing with this movie. It never really gets nowhere near silly as the original, but gets way darker. You see, because JR, turns out he was the main guy. He was the chosen one, and so he smoked the Holy Trinity and got the powers of Biblica, and he handled Frankie Muniz. So while it doesn't get as wacky, comedic wise as the original, it does get strange. Like this movie goes to some really dark places, and there's even the supernatural involved in the end. They really could have gone a little further to link them together and make it all work. There is like Dave Chappelle, Thurgood Jenkins. He did give his son JR like this joint holder, and that thing saves his life at the end of the movie. I don't know. And then they accidentally get Mary Jane high, which is funny because she's all stoned and she gets kidnapped and she doesn't realize like how dangerous things, it's pretty funny. And then after she gets high, she opens up her mind to weed. And at the end of the movie, she like references how she misses Thurgood or something like that. And it's pretty strange. And at the end of the movie, like JR decides he's going to set off and find his dad. The movie literally ends with him leaving to find Thurgood Jenkins after they handle Frankie Muniz. I don't know if they're going to make a part 3 to this film. It could work, just having JR looking for Thurgood, never really finds him because of course Dave Chappelle ain't going to do this. But, I think it could work if they maybe write a good role for Jim Breuer or something. Because Jim Breuer talked about, Totally High, Half Baked too. and he said they did it without anybody involved with the original at all, and the script was terrible. They offered him a cameo, and he didn't want to do it because the script was so bad. So I think if they were to cater to him, make it kind of like a Jim Brewer kind of movie, maybe they can have him and Harlan Williams team up, and they all go looking for Thurgood. It could work, because you got to remember, like, that is not something crazy to think of, like, that could actually happen. I mean, Harlan Williams has been in one of these weird sequel remake movies. He was in, what was it, Bachelor Party 2 or some shit. I'm pretty sure he's been in some more stuff like that. I mean, I love the guy. Mr. Headmistress, anybody? Overall, I guess I'd say Half Baked 2, Totally High, is the better of the recent urban remakes or sequels from Universal's direct-to-video branch of films. But unfortunately, Half Baked 2 also fits right in with the rest of that crap. But hey, it's harmless.